In 1914, the brand new colony of Atascadero, under the leadership of its founder, Edward Gardner Lewis, began work on the Atascadero Administration Building, a double-domed Italian Renaissance structure destined to become an icon for the city. 88 years later, that building was seriously damaged during the San Simeon earthquake. This is the story of how we put it back together.
We used to have our 4-H meetings. We had over 150 kids at one time in Atascadero 4-H, and they met in the basement of the Veterans Memorial. The Farm Bureau met there. Otto Heilemann preceded me as Farm Bureau president, and we were a farming community in those days. Turkeys, chickens, eggs, strawberries, grain, and so on. Also, it was noted that there were signs there that it was a fallout shelter in the days when we were in the Cold War. In 1952, they dedicated the building as the Veterans Memorial Building. The county did. And I always have called it the Veterans Memorial Building, and I prompt anybody that calls it the Rotunda or the City Hall. It's the Veterans Memorial Building, and it should always remain the Veterans Memorial Building.
The walls of the historic Atascadero Administration Building were severely damaged in the quake, and it would take more than cosmetic repairs to restore them. The major reason? The external walls of the building were providing resistance to earthquakes, and simply rebuilding those walls would not meet current building codes. The only way to repair the building's ability to resist earthquakes was to build new inner walls behind the old walls and secure those walls to the rebuilt existing walls, and then attach all of that to the new foundation in the basement, anchored to bedrock some 60 feet below the surface of the earth.
I mean, it's an amazing amount of work went to underpin that foundation, to hold it up and to prevent further settlement of the building and really, solidify the foundation underneath it. So that, combined with all the shotcrete wall that was installed on the first 3 floors for the seismic retrofit, was a pretty amazing accomplishment, where you took an unreinforced brick building and then essentially built a new structural shell inside of that, and then attached it to that old brick to end up with a structurally stable, earthquake resistant building was a pretty amazing feat.
Bit by bit, old surfaces were removed. A lattice of steel rebar was constructed and anchored to the walls. This lattice would strengthen the interior walls and be the girding for thousands of pounds of shotcrete.
Shotcreting is concrete placed under high velocity through a hose, and at the end of the hose there's an air nozzle, and then as it exits the hose it's actually forced onto the wall with air pressure. And prior to starting any of this work, they actually have to do test panels that they did on site a few months ago. And these test panels are a mock-up of what they're doing right now inside the building. These shotcrete test panels have to be done so that they call the nozzle man, the man that's installing that shotcrete right now, he has to qualify on that panel. So he does his work, they core those panels, they look at the sample cores, and if the work is not good enough, the nozzle man's not qualified.
When the process was finished, new drywall or plaster was installed over the inner wall. The process braced the building in every direction and anchored it to bedrock. One side effect that would probably go unnoticed when the project was finished: each of the building's offices would be slightly smaller than they were when they were constructed 100 years ago.